So, first of all, I feel I should explain the hospital thing. You see, when I made that tweet, I had kind of forgotten that I hadn't told anyone that I had been in the hospital. Yeah, sorry about that. I was on a bunch of drugs and I forgot. So, to explain, as I've mentioned before, I do have an autoimmune disease, although it is well managed and treated with immune suppressants. So it rarely is an issue, it doesn't really come up, and it doesn't really affect my life that much. However, it didn't really occur to me that immune suppressants, you see, they suppress your immune system. And so I had some signs of a minor infection, the kind of thing that you just really wouldn't pay that much attention to if you were not, for instance, on immune suppressants. Yeah, if you're not in the habit, small infections, you just kind of ignore them, right? Like, it's not a huge deal. But if you are immune suppressed, you should not ignore them. And so I had to spend the night on intravenous antibiotics. But I have sustained no damage. I am perfectly fine. I was still pretty out of it yesterday, but today I'm all good, and I'll probably be going back to the office tomorrow. We'll see. So a lot of good things. I ultimately got very lucky, and I'm glad that I'm fine. I'm glad
Ellie
that my stupidity
Minibot.
I'm glad that my stupidity in this case had no lasting consequences. So yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm gonna drink some water. I have to drink so much water because they did a CT scan to check if my organs were okay, and they used like contrast, I guess, which is like a dye that makes your organs show up really good, and it feels weird, man. I don't know if any of you have ever gotten IV contrast, because it feels weird and warm inside of you. Yeah, it feels hot, and you feel it in all of the different organs. You feel it in your organs. Yeah, mildly toxic. So they said that I'm supposed to drink a lot of water to try and get rid of it all. So I've been trying to drink a lot of water to get rid of it. Dude, I will say that when I sweat, it smelled like science class. Like when I sweat, it didn't smell like human sweat for like a whole day. It smelled like science class. It smelled like weird chemicals. Yeah, it was super gross, man. And like I had this fever that just like would not go away. So like I was like I would sweat and it would smell so gross. It would smell so much like cleaning chemicals. It smelled like Loctite. Yeah, so it was really gross. It was really super gross. And I would like shower constantly because I didn't want to smell like that, but then I would just sweat more because I was feverish. So yeah, overall, I would not suggest it. They smell kind of sour and are in glues. Dude, that's what I kept saying! That's what I kept saying! You can ask Wolf, because I was like, we should make more projects. And he was like, Ellie, you are high. I kept saying that I smelled like adhesives. I was like, I smell like an adhesives closet. I smell like an adhesives closet. I smell like chemicals. I didn't eat Loctite! Listen, it just kind of gets in your mouth if you're working with it. But yeah, no, so I smelled super gross. I mostly smell normal now. Or maybe I'm just used to it. I don't know. But I do keep showering. I showered like 5 times yesterday. It was crazy. You can taste smells. Okay, so when they like... Ugh. Okay, so when they first put it in me, because I had an IV, I was soup that night. I was soup. I was like a big pot of soup simmering on a stove, in that I was very hot. My fever was very, very high. I was soup. Because they just kept putting things in my IV. So I went there initially, and they put like so many fluids in me. It was just like fluids for a while. But then they like did the blood test, and then they put a ton of antibiotics in me, and I was on the antibiotics for like all night. And then they did the CT scan, and they put like the stuff in me so that they could see my organs better. And then they put pain medicine, and they put antiemetics, because I wouldn't stop throwing up, which defies the purpose of putting water in me. What else was it? Yeah, contrast was what they called it. There were so many other things that they put in me. They put so many things in me. I felt like soup. I just could not believe how many. They kept hooking up new things to my IV and putting more stuff in me. I was like, how is it all gonna fit, man? And like, bleh. Anyway, so my symptoms started on the plane, but I tend to get pretty motion sick on planes, so I just kind of assumed, like, I guess this is a worse plane than usual, but I was just, like, super nauseous. I didn't feel okay. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I just felt really, really messed up. And I was, like, throwing up a lot, but I always get sick on planes, so I just kind of figured it was worse than usual. And then I got home, and by the time I got home, I was like, okay, I've got to prep for the Neuro Collab. Like, I'm gonna be good, right? I'm gonna make this happen, right? I cannot be sick. I have to be good for this. So I did the collab with Neuro, which was a dream. It was so much fun. And I had a really, really good time, but I was also feeling like kind of sick that whole time. And so I left a little bit early, and I felt bad about that. But I had said to Vettel ahead of time, I was like, dude, I'm feeling kind of like I'm dying. And he was like, what, do you want to cancel? And I was like, no. And he was like, okay, well, you know, leave any time and I'll handle the fallout. So I got through it as much as I could. And then at the time when I was like, I'm gonna throw up, I was just like, I've gotta go. And he was like, just say bye. So I said bye, and the collab ended. And so then I couldn't stop throwing up, and I couldn't keep anything down, like not even water. And I was getting like really, really dehydrated, and my fever just like kept going up, and it was going like up, like up to numbers I didn't really know that the thermometer did, right? Like I feel like above like 103, that's like, you know, that's a possibility. But once it gets to like 104, you're like, she can do that? Is that allowed? And I was like, I'm maybe dying. So I called my dad, and he was like, go to the emergency room. What are you doing? So I went to the emergency room, and they let me in immediately because I mentioned that I was on immune suppressants, and they were like, oh my God. So I was put on an IV, and I stayed there for a long time. Am I good now? Yes, I'm absolutely fine. The results of the CT scan are that it doesn't look like there was any real organ damage. I'm glad that it was caught, but I'm doing great, and I'm only going to be doing better from this point forward. And yeah, there's nothing to worry about. I am sorry that I didn't update you guys when I went in there. I don't love talking about my autoimmune stuff because I just always feel like it overstates the problem. You know, I don't want to talk about the details of the disease. I feel guilty because I feel like it sets the expectation. Like people think autoimmune disease and they're like, oh, it must be really serious. And like it would be if it were untreated, but it's well treated and well managed. And so it doesn't really affect me much. This is really the only situation in which it could affect me. So, as long as I keep up with those, it's fine, but I do have to be more aware in the future going forward of any small infection that could become more serious very quickly. And since I now know what it looks like when an infection suddenly becomes more serious, I will be better at that in the future. Yeah, autoimmune diseases just sound so scary in general, because a lot of them are, you know? A lot of them are very serious. So, I'm doing well. I'm going to be doing even better. I had a rough night, but I was in the care of excellent doctors who were very, very nice to me. One woman who was extremely New York got my vein on the first try, which is crazy because no one ever does that. Everyone is always like, oh, easy, I could see your veins. But they don't know that my veins are roly-poly. They escape your grasp. I think they must be made of like natural gum rubber. Like, I don't know what's happening with them. But my veins, people always think it's going to be easy, but it's not. And so I gave her the warning. I was like, you're gonna want to do like my hand, because if you try and do the one in the inside of my elbow, it's not gonna go, like it's not gonna work. Especially since I was extremely dehydrated when I finally got in. It just wasn't gonna happen, you know? Well, Iron Mouse doesn't exactly have an autoimmune disease. She has a disease that prevents her immune system from like existing, right? But it's not an autoimmune disease, actually. Yeah, Iron Mouse has the opposite of autoimmune disease. She has an extreme version of what they do to me to stop my autoimmune disease from doing damage to me. So anyway, yeah, that's what happened. That's why I was in the hospital. I'm happy that we caught it as early as we did. Shout out to my friend who drove me home at 7 a.m, even though he didn't have work because he just got laid off. So he woke up super early to be able to drive me home. Shout out to him as well. Shout out, honestly, to everybody in this situation. Shout out to my extremely New York doctor at the ER. Shout out to everybody. Anyway, so yeah, that was Ciderman. For those of you who don't know who Ciderman is, when I was working on the dog, I needed someone's upper body strength. I needed someone with upper body strength, and I was like, I have a friend who lives nearby, but he doesn't want to deal with this. He shouldn't have to deal with this. He's not going to come over. But then I remembered that I had some of his beer in my fridge because he had come over previously and brought it with him because he likes to watch sports on my TV because it's bigger than his TV. And so I sent him a picture, like a hostage type picture of me holding a screwdriver up to his beer, a cider, threatening its existence. I found out after I sent him that image with no context that he had just been laid off. That he had just been laid off like 10 minutes before, and he immediately, the first thing he got was a message of me threatening his belongings. So, that's also my friend who drove me home from the hospital at 7 a.m., even though he is unemployed and therefore on an unemployed person's schedule. So I know what a big deal that was for him. Shout out everybody. Shout out everybody in this situation, except me, because I really couldn't have made worse decisions at every turn. Yeah.